Goblins and gnomes, goblins and gnomes, and both are super brilliant, but you would never know. Everything they seem to make is faulty or explodes, perfecting imperfection. Goblins and gnomes! Often called GVG, Goblins vs. Gnomes, is the first expansion and released on December 8th, 2014. The second time new cards were added to the game, and it included 123 new collectible cards. This expansion also surprisingly introduced Mechs and retroactively changed minions to the type for the first time ever. Something I think we all considered part of classic OG Hearthstone. This expansion also brought around the introduction of Spectator Mode. Prior to its launch, it had a special event that allowed players to play the unreleased cards in Arena, and courtesy of Trade Prince Gallywix, he gave all players a special entrance ticket to the arena. The first one's free, and then you get hooked. But now that we've got the basics taken care of, let's go ahead and set the scene. Goblins vs. Gnome features, as you might expect, goblins and gnomes. But what are goblins, and what are gnomes? They have a rivalry that spans Warcraft's long history, pitting the brilliant but unstable minds of Azeroth's most creative denizens against one another, in a contest to create the most amazing, crazy, smoke-spewing, gear-grinding, time-bending, earth-rattling inventions ever conceived. These little gals and guys have a way of getting under our skin. Their antics inspire affection in many and annoyance in some, but they always get a reaction. The manic mayhem that seems to happen whenever they're around is a natural fit for the delightful surprises you'll find in Hearthstone. Now let's dive a little bit deeper into goblins. Goblins are known for their business acumen and their love of big explosions, and definitely not in that order. At the heart of goblin engineering lies a deep, overwhelming desire to see things explode. Sure, ideally that means the enemy, but that's not what you'd call a strict requirement. As long as someone is getting blown up, then your average goblin will be happy. The cunning goblins are small green creatures from the Isle of Kazan. Their love of money, explosives, and technology leaves them to be a very dangerous race, both to their enemies and themselves. Most goblins have a neutral standpoint, preferring to sell their contraptions, knowledge, and services to other races. Goblins are small humanoids, crafty and shrewd, bearing an overwhelming interest in commerce and a strong curiosity about mechanical things. Defined chiefly by commerce and trade, the ultimate schemers and con artists, goblins are always in search of a better deal. Despite their seemingly chaotic natures, they exist in a fairly strict and straightforward hierarchy. Other races universally view goblins as inventors, merchants, and, without exceptions, maniacs. Goblins value technology as a useful aspect of commerce. Some say that their advantage and their curse is to be the primary users of technology in a world governed by magic. While dwarves and gnomes share a similar gift, goblin technology is more far-reaching and sinister and makes a larger impact on the natural world. The wise and cunning goblins of Kazan have lived in relative peace for generations. Though some of the race sided with the marauding orcs during the Second War, most goblins remained neutral throughout the various conflicts of the Alliance and Horde. Ruled over by corrupt yet highly affluent trade princes, the goblins created a virtual paradise for themselves throughout the Isles of the South Seas. Their fantastic feats of engineering and vast trade fleets helped make their island capital of Kazan one of the great technological wonders of the world. And now, as the elements themselves rise up in anger across the world, the goblins' mechanical paradise will be put to the test, for very soon fate will force them to choose sides in a conflict that will shape the very history of the world. Goblin cards focus on explosions, and random explosions, while they have also made use of mechs that can also facilitate more explosions. And on the other equally chaotic hand, we have gnomes. What gnomes do, they do for science. While gnomish inventions are less likely to leave smoking craters, they are significantly more likely to turn innocent bystanders into poultry. In fact, it seems like a lot of gnomish engineering is a combination of the wackiest technology imaginable and a hefty dose of turning things into other things, probably by accident. Odds are, rather than blowing something up, a gnomish invention will usually just leave the unfortunate target wishing they'd been blown up. Brilliant inventors with an irrepressibly cheerful disposition, this race has suffered treachery, displacement, and near genocide. It is their remarkable optimism in the face of such calamity that symbolizes the true unshakable spirit of the gnomes. Gnomes are diminutive,
wiry race of tinkerers who live underground. In the Second War, they built gadgets and vehicles, such as submarines and flying machines, for the Alliance to combat the Horde. They are great mechanics and inventors, renowned for their knowledge and eccentric natures. The Gnomes had a city, Gnomeragon, built into Ironforge Mountain, but invading Trogs destroyed it and slaughtered its citizens. Many survivors now live with the Ironforge dwarves, a few traveling with their dwarven friends to Kalimdor. The Gnomes are still reeling from the destruction of their home city, and are loath to leave the safety of the dwarven tunnels. Gnomes are at the heart of the first Hearthstone expansion, Goblins vs. Gnomes, where they represent the Alliance. They are contrasted with the explosive and volatile goblins, with the gnomes tending towards the more mechanical and clockwork constructions. They are also somewhat more lawful and less chaotic than the goblins, although they still have their share of accidents. While malfunctions and indeed correct functioning in goblin technology tends to result in fire explosions, gnomish technology is more likely to transform the target into a chicken or another critter. Gnomes use their tinkering abilities to change the way things are, and while they don't usually get it right the first time, they keep working on until it probably works this time. Gnome effects oftentimes augment existing things as they make improvements. Now, for the themes and ideas that this set implemented and embraced, first and foremost, as they made up almost 1/3 of the expansion, is Mechs. Goblins vs. Gnome introduced Mechs for every class, and while some classes embraced the synergy, such as Mage, Paladin, and Warrior, many neutral Mechs found their way into other classes as well, such as the Piloted Shredder, a Neutron, Mech Warper, the Anti-Killbot, and the overpowered and overplayed Mechangear Thermoplug. Now, to maintain these mechs, you'll need a lot of spare parts, another new mechanic that paved the way for several other sets to come in the future. Spare parts were augments that you could give to a minion. Each effect is 1 mana and had effects as weak as armor plating, which only gave a minion 1 health, to as strong as giving a minion stealth or freezing the target. But when there are goblins and gnomes involved, there's also chaos. Hearthstone uses this expansion to explore the depths of random or RNG mechanics. Whether it's generating random spare parts, firing cannons, or lobbing random bombs. But it didn't stop there. There are truly random effects such as Implosion on Warlock, or Ogres with their chance to attack the wrong target, or the Shredders with their ability to summon a rider from within. Each of these provided random elements to the game. And speaking of ogres, we also got the introduction of the Forgetful mechanic. This is their ability to cause something to happen 50% of the time, such as the effect of Mogor the Ogre or the Ogre War Maul, something that was recently re-explored with Kingpin Pud and the Ogre Gang. Goblins vs. Gnomes also introduced the shuffle into deck mechanics, along with in-hand effects such as Bolvar 4 Dragon or cast when drawn cards such as the Burrowing Mine and the Flame Leviathan's draw trigger. Some of these mechanics becoming an entire class's core identity for an expansion, thinking primarily of Bomb Warrior or Plague Death Knight. But overall, I think that Goblins vs. Gnomes is a fondly remembered expansion. Not only was it the first fully fledged expansion that Hearthstone received, it changed up the way the game was played. But that's going to wrap it up for the Goblins vs. Gnomes video. If you enjoyed what you saw today, maybe consider dropping a like and a subscribe. Leave a comment down below on anything that you think I can improve on in future videos. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one.